The world of Warcraft is back, baby! Well, that's what I'm hearing, and you know what? I think I agree. I've said numerous times that I consider myself a dedicated casual when it comes to a few MMORPGs, and WoW is one of them. There is something about it that just keeps me coming back time after time, and owing to how I play, I am not tainted with the nostalgia of the way it once was, and lamenting that people don't play it socially anymore, nor do I concern myself with the grind for endgame and raiding, so my experience is very take it or leave it. I could see the improvement in Dragonflight from Shadowlands, but it didn't truly grab me. The last MMO to really grab me was when I started playing Guild Wars 2, after I'd finished having my fun, such as it was, with the Shadowlands expansion, and I played that pretty religiously for quite some time. I would even say that that was my main MMO. I had 10 years of content to catch up on, and it was fresh in comparison to other MMOs out there, specifically WoW. And its non-committal, come and go as you please, easy breezy, subscriptionless, buy once and play forever monetary model and horizontal progression made it easy not to feel pressured to play it, which, ironically, made me sort of play it more. But when Dragonflight came out, I fired up my subscription once again and got back involved, playing both WoW and Guild Wars 2 simultaneously. As stated, I didn't get fully into it, I just roamed about enjoying the casual gameplay while listening to a podcast or watching a YouTube video on a second monitor, the way I like to play most games of this type. I thought that Dragonflight looked good. Well, still looked good, because I've always thought that WoW looks good in every iteration. To me, it's one of its strongest elements, but it never truly grabbed me, as I said. So I carried on playing Guild Wars 2, but having dalliances with WoW on the side. You little slut. So when the War Within was coming around, I was obviously going to play it, but I wasn't particularly psyched or massively excited. Sort of the same thing really, aren't they? I was more excited for Space Marine 2, a follow-up to one of my favourite games of all time. But a few days before release, I pre-ordered War Within so that it would be ready to go, and then on the official release date, not before, I'm not buying no fucking Deluxe edition or anything, get the fuck out of here with that. I jumped back into Azeroth and the Isle of Dawn, and with my expectations set low to middling, what I found was that I was pleasantly surprised. And after that initial surprise, I was also gripped. I had heard that there was going to be activities in the form of delves for the solo player, and so I was hoping that this expansion would hold more interest for me as a solo enjoyer. It is not that I don't like any of you hoi polloi necessarily, but I don't know anyone who actually plays this game at my age anymore, and I am too old to mix it with the youngsters. That could either be kind of irritating for me, or just fucking weird depending on age. So a way to indulge myself without committing to group content is what I'm all about. So with that said, here are my thoughts on the latest offering from Blizzard as a predominantly solo player for the world of Warcraft, The War Within. I guess a good place to start would be the story itself. I am admittedly a tech skipper. I have never read any more of a quest dialogue than I needed to, just to clarify what it is I am supposed to be doing. But WoW always uses its cutscenes to good effect to just give enough of the story to you so that you kind of know what's going on. But I had decided that I would actually try and read them this time, and I did, to a point. But like I said, where I fell into bad habits now and then and just blasted the accept button and then turned to face the golden map arrow and launched myself in that direction, the cutscenes filled the gaps, and as a whole, I found the general story quite engaging. It is clear who our enemy is. The big villain, Xal'atath, is indeed a great villain. There are a few twists here and there, and the different factions feed interestingly into the narrative. I'm not a lore whore, but I am led to believe that if you have knowledge of certain characters from past expansions, then you'll get a bit of a kick out of the roles they play in the story. And above all, there is a good base with plenty of intrigue to power us into the upcoming patches and subsequent expansions in the World Soul saga. You know, the story about the big sword. And in what I would term as a compliment to that story, I've actually gone and watched a few lore videos about some of the characters purely because of my piqued interest. I will admit that there were some quite touching story beats that stirred just a wee bit of emotion in me in the main cutscenes, and even though I don't have that previous attachment to characters, I still felt myself doing a little internal fist pump when they happened. I will not go into any details, I don't want to spoil the story for those that want to experience it themselves. There has been a bit of contention with the way that they time-gated the story and doled it out in chunks, which worked okay for me, as it made me stop at a certain point and go and do some other content, but I can see why it would annoy other people. Perhaps it was an intentional tactic to get people to slow down and try other elements of the game, but they probably could have just given it to us all in one go and let people go and do other activities afterwards. Not a big thing personally, but still it ruffled a few storm feathers. Oh, and I also love that all the dwarves are Scottish as fuck. They were obviously Scottish before, but I never really paid attention. But with my ancestry in the land of haggis, iron brew whiskey and saying the word cunt, I appreciate that. But the story is just a pleasant surprise and a supplementary element for me personally. So what about the gameplay itself? What has changed? Well, not much really. Slight tweaks to skills and talents and the introduction of a new mini hero skill tree to fill in as you level from 70 to 80, but much of it feels the same. So why does this feel better than Dragonflight? I think it's just general quality of life changes, more succinct storytelling and a further embracement of the new verticality that comes with dragon riding. Firstly, there is the warband stuff, which should have happened a long time ago, but the sharing of your achievements across all your characters is very welcome, so no more grinding it up on each of your alts. You can also share gear between characters, which is another welcome change. Secondly, I don't know if this came about in this expansion or Dragonflight, but I only just noticed that I can click on anything on the map now and set a marker. So Flight Masters, whatever, I can now set an arrow to guide my tiny mind directly to it, which is great. But like I said, that might just be me missing something that was already there. Another thing I definitely missed from the last expansion was the inclusion of follower dungeons. Literally the feature I have been waiting for, and I was so uninspired by Dragonflight that I never bothered to dig any deeper and found out about it. But now it is on. I am now running dungeons that I usually couldn't be bothered to because I don't want to have to commit to a group of other players and then commit to the entirety of that run. Essentially, you are playing the dungeons at normal difficulty with a party of AI NPCs. Not the stupid dumb world destroying moron AI all capitalists are busy masturbating over, just your good old bog standard video game AI. But I digress. This allows me, and indeed new or returning players, to learn the dungeons by ourselves, at our own pace, without the shit feeling of not knowing what you are doing as the dungeon loads and the rest of the group just charges off into the distance. This has always been a complaint of mine because, yeah, sure, you could say,
"Hey guys, I'm a fucking noob and don't know what I'm doing. Do you mind if we go incredibly slow while you all resent me because your time is precious?"
Now I'm being rather hyperbolic there, I know. Plenty of people will stop and guide you through, but now I don't have to. I can learn the mechanics of the dungeon and then join groups later and only have to worry about letting other people down with my shitty ability and not my ignorance. Overall, I found the dungeons to be pretty enjoyable in the new expansion, so, you know, pretty good. I mentioned there about new and returning players, and I wonder whether that is a direct line of thinking from Blizzard regarding some of the choices they made for this expansion. All the adverts I saw on YouTube or the web regarding the War Within were very much hammering the message, get back in the fight. These adverts didn't feature young people, maybe people better looking and a little younger than me, but definitely adults, potentially more around my sort of age, like people who used to play and no longer do because they have lives or children now. Are they trying to tempt that player base back? People have been lamenting that they seem to be courting more solo-focused players as time goes by, and the addition of delves as a way of doing solo instance content in order to build towards endgame participation is a good idea in my eyes. I know old players have a nostalgia for having to speak to each other and find groups to do dungeons, but I'm all for these experiences playing out more like a game of Fortnite where we can just jump in and play. But dungeon requires a little more preparation, and follower dungeons do that. Doing dungeons like this can help set you on a path to then getting better gear so that you can start doing higher tier delves in order to gear up towards raid tier, and if you get that high level gear that allows you to do a raid, then perhaps you will be more willing to get involved in endgame, at least have a bit of a go. To me, many of the blockers and barriers to getting into doing a few raids would be that I can't be fucked to commit to groups and schedules to get to where you need to be with the gear that you need. If I am given a way of getting there myself, I may just take that extra step into endgame. Maybe that will just be joining a casual looking for raid group, but I might now do it because I haven't had to, commit to the grind. Which I think may be a clever strategy on Blizzard's part to train people into other areas of the game who are time poor. And even if I don't take the extra step, it is still more content for me to do, which can only be a good thing. The only thing that I wish was a feature, and I think I remember Ian, whatever the fuck his name is, saying in an interview with someone that this is an idea that they have thought about, is rather than getting this predetermined set of NPCs in follower dungeons, I want to take my warband in. This would also vastly extend the playtime of players where I could spend time leveling alts and gearing them up to make my party, my healer, my tank, my DPS. I love leveling alts. It will be amazing to be able to have more of a reason to do so. Again, a very solo focused style of play, but I would absolutely love that and would shit my eyes out of my face if that ever happened. Make that happen please, Blizzard. But while I am thinking about follower dungeons and such, I mentioned before that I had always wanted something like that implemented, and so you know where I got that idea? Final Fantasy XIV. I struggled with that game. I feel like that should become a bit of a catchphrase for me. But one thing I did like about it, when every character shut the fuck up for 5 seconds, was that when you did a dungeon, there was a way of doing it with a set of NPCs. And I always thought, why can't Warcraft do something like this? In some ways, I felt like I was gated out of some content. I could run those dungeons, it's all on me, but this way, anyone could experience it. And I know the purists will want to, gatekeep the game for themselves and other people that they want to play like them, but these are still paying players, and maybe they should get to experience that content too. And now they can. So they've gone and done it now, and I'm very pleased about it. Also, Guild Wars 2 has all the great mounts, and in particular the flying mounts, especially the Griffin. And now World of Warcraft has dragon riding, just like the Griffin. So congratulations, WoW, for stealing everyone else's ideas and implementing them into your game. I'll be honest, I'm not even mad. I really like your implementation of these things. What do they say? Imitation is the most sincerest form of flattery or something? So you know what? Whatever. But that being said, about the dragon riding being lifted from Guild Wars 2, can I say something controversial? I prefer the flying in World of Warcraft. There, I said it. And on that subject, I mentioned the verticality of the expansion. Dragonflight created spaces for you to soar from point to point, but I think they have really nailed it in this one. I've been leveling an alt paladin through Dragonflight recently, and I find myself often running out of dragon riding, flying power, whatever the fuck you call that, and having to wait, like if I want to fly up high, like they made things sometimes a little too vertical, whereas now they've refined it a little bit. It feels like there's a lot of verticality, but you never feel like you're running out of dragon riding power. You can get everywhere you want quickly, and it's fun to do. Moving from place to place is easy and quick, and I absolutely love flying down into the ringing deeps from the Isle of Dawn, pitching down vertically through the coreway, sweeping down and around the tunnels and around into Hallowfall, emerging into the cavernous area and seeing the view open up in front of you. All of these big caverns with their mists and vapours giving a real depth of field. And each area looks great. This is obviously a personal and subjective thing, but I much prefer all the zones over many of the zones in Dragonflight. No notes, as they say. But overall, this expansion has grabbed my attention, and I have been playing nothing else in my free time. I've been thinking about what I'll do next in order to get better gear, to progress through the delve tiers. I've now managed to work my way up and I'm doing tier 8 delves, trying to get myself that better gear. I've been getting involved in my fashion game, got myself a fucking hat. I feel invested, even when, as I said, Space Marine 2 is just waiting there for me, and the latest Guild Wars 2 expansion, which I haven't even really looked at. There are genuinely loads of games to play and topics I want to make other videos on, but I have had to make this one because I feel invested in the world of Warcraft again. Is it the best ever? Probably not, but I will definitely be playing this for the foreseeable future. As I write this, I am logging in to claim my first award from the Great Vault and get started on my next set of delves. Even the mild bit of grind isn't putting me off for my coffer keys, a currency needed in order to open a special chest in certain delves that give more rewards at different times. So it is a strong recommend for me. I can't testify to the raid or anything, but you never know. The way things are going, I might be able to soon. But definitely, if you're a returning player, you can now experience more of the content available in the expansion on your own, at your own pace, and that for me is great. The door is still open for you if you want to get into that group content as well. There are a few balancing issues that Blizzard need to work out regarding delves and stuff, but these are minor gripes and I am sure they can tweak some stuff and put those right, because the concept is good. Let's be clear that they aren't quite right yet. They have been too easy and then too hard. Bran, your NPC accomplice, is a storming mega chad one moment and a moronic infant with a traumatic brain injury the next. But overall, the idea is solid and I am enjoying them and looking forward to see where they end up. And I appreciate that there is finally a way for someone like myself to achieve raid level gear. I very much look forward to where the World Soul saga is going and will be keeping up with the game for a while. We'll see for how long, but I will definitely get my money's worth and already have. Obviously a lot of people are saying that this is an upturn in fortunes for World of Warcraft, and on a philosophical note, where does a game like WoW go next? Player numbers fall year on year, which should be expected when a lot of what WoW once offered earlier on is now provided by other games. And whilst the older player base wallows in nostalgia, people want a different experience from their multiplayer games these days. I did some googling and there are still new players signing up, of course. It would seem that some of those are players coming across from other MMOs and some are indeed returning players, but there is still new accounts being created. They still have healthy numbers, and indeed World of Warcraft is still, as far as I can see, the leader in the MMORPG space with regards to subscriptions. But for a game with such good branding and an attractive style and a particular playstyle, there will always be people that enjoy this type of game. I just wonder how many are young new players. If you change the game too much, it won't be WoW anymore. Some would argue that that is exactly what they've done anyway, but I think I see most things as quality of life improvements. The old player base may not like it, but everything changes and so does the World of Warcraft. But maybe with the features now in place and the more solo friendly playstyle, could this be the beginning of a trend back up? Maybe not to the glory days, but somewhere in between. Like I said, can some of these more solo friendly features actually turn things back round into more social features, because people will be able to get themselves ready to raid, maybe actually do some casual raids and then take that first step into that, which might then lead them to saying, well, I'm now going to join a guild and do raiding on a regular basis. Could this be a clever tactic on Blizzard's part to address how they maybe need to guide people back into the way that they want it to be played? If this all works out well, then perhaps this is what will happen. Anyway, thanks for watching folks, just a quickish one I wanted to make as I had been enjoying my time with the game, and I'd say why not give it a try yourself. Maybe I'll see you in Azeroth, but probably not because I'll be playing by myself. But you never know, if you see a character run past with fart in his name, it might be me.